So in this session, we are going to talk about that how we can conduct a systematic literature review. Essentially, I'll divide this whole talk into two parts. The first one will be that how we used to do literature reviews, right? So I'll give an example of one of my systematic literature reviews that years ago, how I conducted that systematic literature review. And the second part would be that how we can do systematic literature reviews now, where we have the support of different AI tools, how we can utilize them to do systematic literature reviews, and then eventually we'll make a comparison that what is the difference. More specifically in this webinar, we'll have a quick introduction to systematic literature reviews, what exactly they are. Then I'll present one of my systematic literature reviews, that how I conducted it, what are the different steps that I followed. The third one will be the automation of literature review steps, that how we can use AI tools to do the same as I did in my systematic literature review, which was more manual effort. Then we'll have some demos of the tools, that like how we can use those tools to do systematic literature reviews. And finally, we'll end the session with some skills that I believe that as a researcher, it is important to acquire at this point of time where the use of AI tools is so pervasive in research. So what exactly is a systematic literature review? I believe most of us here would have some idea of what exactly is a systematic literature review. So essentially, it is a structured, a more methodological way of identifying, evaluating, and synthesizing the existing body of knowledge on a specific topic. And what is the benefit of all of this? Why don't we do a more like traditional literature review? Why we should prefer to do systematic literature reviews? The reason being that it's replicable. One can follow exactly the same steps as you did. And if they end up with the same findings, that would mean essentially that you have done research in the right way. The second would be reduced bias. So the way it is conducted, it reduces one's personal views or bias towards something when you're doing this kind of research. And certainly it gives you a very comprehensive overview of a particular research topic. Now, depending upon which stage of research you are in, systematic literature reviews can be done at any stage. It could be done at the master's level, it could be done at the PhD level, postdoc level. In my case, personally, I have done systematic literature reviews, a couple of them during my PhD, and then during my postdoc, also I did a systematic literature review. Now, if we look at a more concrete example that why we should do systematic literature review. So if you look at the first example, a normal review would say that, for example, several studies suggest exercise improves mental health, right? But then if we do a systematic literature review on the same topic, so our finding would be something like this. We would say, based on 25 studies, exercise shows a moderate positive effect on mental health with consistent findings across publications. So you see there's concreteness. Like, in the first one, you say several studies. It's more a subjective term. Several studies could mean 5 studies for one, maybe 100 studies for another person. But in the second one, it's more specific. We have gathered papers on a specific topic using a specific methodology. And then based on that, we say that based on 25 studies, here is a finding that we found consistent across these studies. So this is the difference in the way we present our findings when we are doing a traditional or more normal literature review as compared to a systematic literature review. Now I have a question for you. And the question is that, have you ever conducted a systematic literature review before or not? So if you can quickly say yes or no in chat, that would help me understand what do we have in the audience, like which stage you are in, whether you have already conducted or whether you plan to do a systematic literature review. Okay, so there's a more no's, some yeses. All of you, please very quickly just say yes or no. So what the answers that I see, it's more no. So I believe that most of the audience we have here, they have not conducted a systematic literature review. So I hope this session is going to be useful for them, because this would show you how we can do a systematic literature review in a more traditional way, and also how we can do a systematic literature review using AI tools. Thank you for your answers. Okay, now when we want to do a systematic literature review using the traditional approach, right? So different fields have different guidelines. So for instance, I come from a computing background, and the guideline that we follow is that of Barbara Ketchman, Guidelines for Systematic Literature Reviews. And according to that guideline, these are the steps that we have to follow. So the first one is that the need for you, why exactly you're doing a literature review. There could be multiple reasons for it. It could be that it is part of your PhD. It is that you want to understand a field of study. It is that you want to identify gaps in a field of study. There could be multiple purposes. The point is that you should be clear in your mind why exactly you're doing this literature review. The second step would be research questions. This is super important. You need to have the right research questions. You don't want to have questions for which you cannot find answers based on existing literature review, existing literature. You also do not want to have questions that are redundant, like somebody else has already answered those questions. So defining research questions is a very critical step of a systematic literature review. You should have the right set of research questions. How many questions there should be, this is something, there is no concrete answers. For me, I believe anything between 2 to 5, 2 to 6 would be a good number to answer in a single systematic literature review. Then you conduct a pilot study. A pilot study essentially shows you that the papers you already know, whether those papers are returned by your search string or not, and whether you can answer the questions you have defined based on those 10 papers or not. If you cannot, there is some issue and you need to go back. Then you design the search string, which would help you to retrieve papers. Then you define your inclusion and exclusion criteria through which you do screening of the papers. Then you select relevant studies. Then you extract data from those studies against the research questions that you have defined. And finally, you analyze the data and you report the findings. So this is a glimpse of how systematic literature reviews are done. So what I'll do is that, as I mentioned, that in the first part, I'll go through one of my systematic literature reviews and I'll show the steps that what exactly I did at that time. This was done in 2017. I guess this was published earlier, 2018. Yeah, but the work was done in 2017 during my PhD. So I'll show you that how I did it, how much time and effort it took. And then if I am going to be doing the same thing today, what is it that I will do different? So the research questions that I defined for this systematic literature were these two, like the quality attributes, and another one was about architectural tactics, right? And I had a clear motivation for both of these questions, that why I want to answer these questions. As I mentioned that I've seen systematic literature with different number of research questions. Some would answer 2 questions, some would answer, let's say 5 or even 7 questions. It's really up to the field, and it is also more like how much you can answer from the data that you have at hand. But somewhere between 2 to 5, I believe it is a more safe number of questions. Okay, the next step is that you identify papers for your systematic literature review. So you have to design a search string that can retrieve the right papers for you from databases. So there are different databases that you can use. For example, if you are in computing, maybe IEEE Explore or ACM could be a good digital database for you. If you are in medicine, then PubMed might be a better one. If you are in any other field and you want to go for a generic one, in that case, Scopus or Google Scholar could be a good option. In my case, what I did was that I identified papers from these 6 different digital databases like IEEE Explore, Scopus, Science Direct, ACM, Spinger, Wiley. And this is the search string that I designed. So essentially what you do is that you put the search string, it retrieves the papers, you download the records, and then the screening process starts. Okay, now how do we screen papers? Like what we should include and what should we not include? Because what happens is that when you run the search string, it would retrieve a very big number of papers, like maybe 1,000 papers. Now you cannot include all those 1,000 papers in your literature review. It would take you years to go through all that much data. So you have to define certain criteria that as per this criteria, I'll include and I'll exclude papers. For example, like exclusion criteria, I define that a study that is not in English, I will not consider it in my literature review. Or a study that is not peer reviewed, maybe it's like a white paper or some blog on a website, I will not consider it in my literature review. What I will include, for instance, is a study that leverages, let's say, big data or corresponding tools for cybersecurity. So it's important that you define this criteria in the right way because it would help you to screen papers in an accurate way. This is a framework, Prisma framework, that is followed often for paper selection. So you can follow it and it essentially does the same thing, that it removes duplicates. It helps you to rightly identify the papers from the big chunk of papers that is returned by your search string. So if you look at this figure, this is what I got for my literature review. So when I ran the search string on these 6 databases, it returned a total of 4,634 papers. Then I did title-based selection, so it reduced to 748. Then duplication removed because some papers are indexed by multiple databases. When I removed that one, it reduced it to 516. And then I did abstract-based selection, which reduced it to 168. Then I reread the full text, and then it reduced to 69. And then I did snowballing, which is a technique where you go through the references of the 69 papers that I identified, and then I see that, okay, based on the title, I can find something that is relevant to my literature review. So that also returned around 5 papers, and eventually the pool became that of 74 papers that I have to read, extract the data against the research questions that I have defined, and then interpret, analyze the data to answer the questions. So for data extraction, what I did was I designed a data extraction form that what data items I will extract from these papers. So the first one is like the metadata about, let's say, the authors, year, title, publication type, publication, those kind of things are very straightforward. The items that are of more interest were the application domains, data sources, big data processing framework, proposed technique, and so on and so forth. And then on the right side, you can see that based on which item, I will answer which research question. So this way you can, the process is very organized. You extract data and you put it in an Excel sheet in this respective data item. And then later on, you can analyze it very easily when everything is in place. Okay. The next step is to how you have extracted the data and now you have to analyze the data to answer the research questions. So in this figure, in this example, I have shown that how I have analyzed the data. So for instance, you can see that I applied thematic analysis, which is a method for qualitative data analysis that I applied. And using that method, I analyze the data and I answer the research questions. This figure, in my understanding, it's important that we show through an example that how we went from the raw data to an eventual finding. Because if anybody want to replicate this study, there is every single detail that is there, and they can follow that to replicate the finding and reach the same finding as I have. This is a practice that I have seen in multiple qualitative studies where they show through an example that how they reached from raw data towards an eventual finding. So my suggestion to you is that if you are writing a systematic literature review, do put it this way. It really helps, especially for the reviewer. It is very helpful to understand your data analysis process. So this SLR, it took almost a year to get published, and it was published in a decent venue in the Journal of Systems and Software. Okay, that was the first part of this talk where I showed you that what are the steps that we can follow to do a systematic literature review. And I showed you through an example that how I followed those steps to do a systematic literature review. Okay. Now, the second part is about that how we can do a systematic literature review but using an AI tool. So when I did that literature review, it took me almost 3 to 4 months because everything is done manually. From designing the research questions, designing the search string, retrieving papers, screening, everything was done manually. So that's why it took quite a lot of time. But now if we do the same thing, there are ways which we can use to make the process more efficient without compromising the quality of the systematic literature review. Okay, can you please answer this quick question? What do you think would be or is the hardest part of a systematic literature review? So you have seen the steps, right? So if you can answer that, what do you think would be the hardest part when doing a systematic literature review? In the chat, if you can quickly answer, you have like a minute or two. Please quickly answer the question on your screen that what is the hardest part of doing a systematic literature review? Everyone, please answer the question. Okay, so I'm quickly going to go through the answers and see are the what is the difficult part in doing an SLR. So it's data analysis, collecting and delivering papers, knowledge extraction, designing the research question, paper selection, analysis, cleaning and data extraction, screening, knowing which papers to read, okay, searching for papers and analyzing data, search strategy, paper selection, screening paper extraction, screening, collecting relevant papers, how to get the right papers, paper screening, okay, paper selection. So what I see is that there are a few themes of what is the hard part, like the selection of papers or identification of the right set of papers, extraction of data from those papers, and analysis of data, right? Or what was also mentioned that which papers to read. In other words, it's more or less the same that how do we find the right papers for a systematic literature review. Okay, now we'll see in the demo, in the next slide, that how we can do the same process but do it using AI. Okay, so this is going to be a long demo, and I'll be explaining to you that how this works. So this is a tool called Research Collab, and they have a feature for systematic literature reviews. The good thing in this feature is that they give you a lot of control over how you do literature systematic review. It's not that you throw the research questions on the topic and you get the review out of it. There is a lot of customization and control that you can have as a user. For instance, you can define your own research questions, you can change the selection criteria, the inclusion and exclusion criteria, and it's a very stepwise process where you can verify everything, you can change things which you want to change, and then eventually it give you a systematic literature review. Okay, now, having said that, it does not mean that everything is to be done by this tool and we just don't do anything, right? That's not the purpose, because that way we would not learn anything, and we eventually would not produce even anything of meaning as well. So I'll show you the steps, and then I'll show you what is it that would be done, should be done by the tool, And what is it that should be done by the researcher himself or herself? Let's see how this tool works. So on the left side, you see like find, review, write. You click on review. And you go to literature review. And here you see it says systematic literature reviews. You can, if you have not used the tool, you can quickly go through this tutorial to understand how the tool works. Then you can go to new to start a new systematic literature review. You can enter the topic of your systematic literature review. So it is asking you that which stage you are in. Is it a part of your master's, PhD? Okay, so here the process starts. So the first thing, as I mentioned in the traditional ways as well, you start with a research question, defining your research questions. So you define your target audience, that who is this review for, who is going to read it. Then you answer another question about the exposure. And then you answer another question to make sure that the AI tool is fed with the right information to um, do a more accurate literature review. Okay, now it gave you a plane that sort of how this systematic literature would be conducted. You can verify and approve the plane. This question, you see, this is a broader research question. Now it will break it down into multiple research questions. So this is your inclusion and exclusion criteria, as I showed you earlier as well. Here you can see that you can remove a criteria, or you can also add any specific criteria you want to add. So here is the search string that it has designed for you. As I mentioned, that you can add or remove any criteria you want to. Next, you can see the research questions. So here you see that it has defined 48 different research questions. You can again remove or add research questions. You can refresh it to let the AI design more research questions for you. Okay, now all of that is done. And next, the thing is that it will start searching for the literature. So it says that it has identified around 3,000 papers. And these are the topic clusters. For those who are asking that what is the name of the research, this tool, so it's called Research Collab. Okay, so now it is doing a search to identify the right set of papers for the systematic literature review. As it says that it's going to take around a couple of minutes to go through the databases and find papers. Okay, now this is important. You see it has identified 3,000 papers, this much retrieved. with abstract and 646 sources. Okay. You can see the topic clusters, you can see the papers, most relevant, most cited, most recent. You can view the PDF, you can also view the citation map, which is very interesting. It will be shown in this demo, and that shows you how these papers connect with each other. You can even access the PDF if it is an open access paper. So you can decide here whether to include this paper or whether not to include this paper in your systematic literature review. And then you can see the citation map. Here you see on the top, like it has divided into years, and then you can also have like the categorization based on the topic. This citation map essentially shows that which paper has cited which paper. So, for instance, a paper that is very highly cited, that would mean that it's essentially a good quality paper. If this is has missed some paper you want to edit, you can also put the DOI of the paper and you can edit your list of papers. You see here there are quite a lot of filters which enables you to reach to the right set of papers, like for example by year, by citation, by recency, and many other filters included here. You can also do the division or the look at the papers based on categories, like for example, is it related to information and cybersecurity or some other cluster. Okay, now you're doing selection or screening of papers. There is a question that how do we access it? So as I mentioned that the tool is called Research Collab and researchcollab.ai. And then as you log in, you can see this menu on the left hand side. You click on review and then you click on literature review. And then from there, you can start this process of doing a systematic literature review. So now you see that it is screening the papers. It takes a couple of minutes. You can see the progress here that it has screened 300 out of 340 papers. And by screening, I mean that it sees whether it adheres to the inclusion criteria or not. Okay, so the results are that 188 are strong includes, 69 are clear excludes, and then 89 needs your decision. So now we'll go through these 86 papers and we'll manually either include or we'll exclude these papers. You see, you have an option to review them yourself. and then it has divided into different clusters, the papers as well. You see, you have the control over here to make the decision whether to include the paper or whether not to include the paper. Once you go through all the process, make the decisions for the papers which are in uncertain zone, then you can log the selection. So here we log the selection, and now we go and we extract data from these papers. So we have selected around 190 papers, and now we'll go and extract the data from these 190 papers against research questions that we have already defined. So this is the figure that I also showed you for my paper, although I tried differently. But this is the Prisma. It has shown to you that this was a strategy, and this is how it has pulled the papers out of the databases. Okay, here you see that it has extracted data in the form of a table like intervention, comparator, outcome, effect, or you can even extract other data items as well. Okay, we look at the data extraction in the next one. There's a question that how Research Collab compares with Covidence. Sorry. So, well, for systematic reviews, I've seen multiple tools which offer support for systematic reviews. The one thing that I personally liked in Research Collab is the level of control and customization that you have at your hand. The second good thing is the transparency. Everything you can see what exactly is happening, how many papers retrieved. You have a control over making your own personal decisions about the selection of papers. This is the good part in Research Collab. Uh, the other tool was mentioned. It does help, but it would be more like a black box. You enter the topic and then it gives you the literature review, right? But you don't go through all these stepwise process to help you understand and help you control each step. Okay, now we see how the data extraction works. So it's continuation of the same as was shown in the last video. So we extract data from the remaining papers as well. You can see the papers and you can see the findings if you want to verify something. Okay, now this part is very interesting. The synthesis one. So you see it give you the publication trends, the answers to your research questions with some concrete numbers. So the data items that I showed you that I did in my literature review, like the publication year, the citations, and all that kind of stuff, it is done automatically now through the data extraction done by Research Collab. And the last part is the drafting that, okay, you have you have identified the papers, you have extracted the data. Now to write a systematic literature review based on those findings or extracted data. So you click on the write up and then it produces this kind of a report. You can download it in Word or PDF format as well. You see it has drafted a systematic literature review for you. Okay, now $1 million question would be that can we just take it and submit it maybe to a journal or somewhere? So the answer would be no, this we cannot submit, right? If you submit it, it would be flagged as plagiarized content and that would not be good. Um, what is it that we should do? So what is it that we should do is that we should control every steps as I've shown you. And then when even if we use this write-up, this should be treated as a first draft, right? We need as a researcher to put our own mind, our own insights, context into this draft, change it the way it should be changed, and make significant changes based on understanding of the topic and our on readings of the papers. That is when it can become a product for publication. And its current form, if you just follow all the steps, write up, take it and put it, submit it to a journal, that would not work. It would not be like doing the right science. And at the same time, it's going to be flagged as AI plagiarized. So this is something you should make it clear that it is not the end product. Okay, it is a draft that need to be worked on to bring it into a form that is publishable. Okay, now for the related work section of a systematic literature, you also need to find other related papers that you can put in that, okay, for example, on this topic, these systematic literature reviews already existed. For that one, this tool, Research Collab, also offers some support. So here is how it works. So we go to related papers. We put like let's say, our own paper, or if the paper is already available online, and then it says that, okay, these are the papers that are related to the paper you have put in as a seed paper. You can see the papers based on different categories. You can also do the filtering through citations, references, through years. You can have a look at a paper, and maybe if it's relevant, you can add to your list of papers, and then you cite it in the related work section of your systematic literature review. So this way, it's not only limited to systematic literature reviews. For any paper, if you are looking for related work, related papers, this feature can be used for that purpose. If you want to generally understand a field of study, so this is also very useful. You can, like, for example, uh, have a paper, then find related papers to that one, and then see around that what the field related to these papers look like. So it will show you the challenges related in that particular field. This is for a specific paper. If you want to see like how good or bad the paper is when it is evaluated by AI, this is what you can use and see that how good or bad a paper is. And finally, if you want to identify gaps, research gaps based on a systematic literature review, this is all. There is also a feature offered by Research Collab. You go to Topic Explorer, you go to Creative Tool. So, for instance, I entered deep learning for healthcare, and then it has given you all these different gaps that this is what you can study in this particular topic. And even within those research gaps, you can go even more deeper, and it can give you more concrete research gaps or things that are missing in the literature, and you can fill it through your own search. So, for instance, you see, giving you different options. Apart from like what I've shown you, there are also many other features that you can find useful. Like, for example, as I showed you, finding relevant papers, extracting data from papers, chatting with papers, generating summary of papers, brainstorming a topic, understand research trends, draft a literature review, and even virtually peer review a paper if you have one, or you want to assess a paper, how good or bad it is. You can put it in Research Collab. If you want to learn more about systematic literature reviews, so here is a list of some good videos that you can watch on YouTube, and it would help you to understand the bits and pieces of systematic literature reviews. What is it that you should do as a researcher? Because in the pervasive use of AI, or the almost AI is everywhere, even in the edtech domains, there are so many tools that are being launched, and many people are using them in good ways as well. So for that, you need to understand prompt engineering. You should have literacy of AI tools. You should also, very importantly, understand the ethical use of AI. This is a very critical area where sometimes we do not draw a clear line as in what is responsible use of AI and what is irresponsible use of AI. Workflow automation, in your daily work that you're doing, see what is it that you can automate and where from you can take out time, because in our daily work, there are so many things that are repetitive in nature. So we can automate it through the use of AI and evaluation of AI outputs. This is also important that an output given by AI should not be taken as it is. Rather, it should be verified and double checked. That is it for this session. Just to conclude, there were two sections. In the first one, I showed that how we used to do systematic literature reviews, all done manually. In the second one, I showed you demos of how we can do systematic literature reviews with the help of AI and how it can make us more efficient. But at the same time, we need to to make sure that we do not use it unethically. We do not use it in an irresponsible way where it end up being just a pleasurized report. So that is what we should be cautioned about. And that is it. And now, if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer the questions. So let's have a look at the chat. There are some questions, and so about the AI detection or plagiarism one, I already answered that it should not be taken as it is. It should be that it's taken as a draft and you work on it. Is it suitable for scientific paper writing? It is certainly a tool that you can use for doing good science, for doing research. If you take it as in like that, it will give you a complete paper, When you submit it to a research journal or a conference, that's not what it is for. So the next question is that how to aid 5 research questions together for same topic to ensure consistency and information flow of the topic. So, well, what if you're talking about this tool? So it gives you some options of research questions. You can add or remove research questions. Um, Ensuring consistency, what I believe is that the tool would already give you research questions related to the topic. But if you feel that something is not relevant or not consistent with the topic that you have given, you can always remove research questions. Okay, so the session is very helpful. Thank you. And then you're giving a suggestion about meta-analysis. So thank you. We'll try to organize a webinar around meta-analysis as well. Uh, could we send you the presentation? Yes, that is possible. Thank you for the presentation. Then it's one. Okay, so it's about the research collab being whether you should use the pro version or not. I believe some features are available in the free version, and some features are available. More advanced features are available in the pro version of this particular tool. So another question is that which tool we can use to write normal research article. Well, the term writing a research article is I would not do that. Yes, there are tools which we can use for different purposes, like for example, for maybe drawing diagrams or making slides or converting your notes into a draft, a paper draft. That is something which can be done through different tools, but not that we use a tool for writing a whole paper for us. About certificates, so I believe that the organizers of this webinar they would be able to send you a certificate for attending this webinar. Well, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining this webinar. I hope you found something useful in this webinar, and maybe see you in the next webinar. So have a good rest of your day, and bye for now. Thank you.